So today, we're not just in Wisconsin, we're in Florida. It's 88 in Two Rivers today, which we are not used to. I'm sure Ingrid and all those others that are joining us from Florida are like, that's nothing. And out west, I know it's super warm everywhere right now. So we're going to chat with Ingrid Schindall. She's the owner and director of IS Projects and Nocturnal Press. She's going to share latest projects, the Existent Books publishing. We get to see some of the studio. Ingrid is a passionate and productive printmaker and book artist based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Her prints and artist books have been exhibited internationally and nationally. She's devoted to her writing practice and produced 6 limited edition books, all written, designed, hand printed, and bound by the artist. And it's so exciting because Letterpress gives us that ability, right, Ingrid, to be the producer, the publisher, the artist, the designer, the writer. I love your work. I'm so glad you're going to share more with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a fantastic introduction, and thanks so much for all of the info and everything going on there. I am so excited to be here. And so happy that we could make this all work out the timing wise. So we actually have 2 artists in residence right now, Elia Kalaf and Carol Prusa. This is the last day of the residency, so they are sort of doing the last little tweaks and things that we can do before we start going a little bit further into the production of the books. So that is a really exciting sort of time to be here. Carol's actually in the back marbling paper, and Elia's upstairs furiously laying things out on Illustrator. But I put together a little presentation for you guys on the computer so we can get a little high-res version of all this stuff that we've been working on. And we'll do a studio tour. And then, yeah, I would love to hear from folks here. I see a lot of friendly faces, a lot of faces that I recognize and new faces. So thank you all so much for coming. It really means a lot. And you know, I'm just stoked to be here. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and give you guys a little bit of a quick backstory. If I am talking too fast, please let me know. There is so much to go over and I'm so excited. I tend to just like, woo, but I will try to slow down a little bit. So I'm gonna share the screen and show you the first little bit of the shop here. So my name is Ingrid Schindall. I started Nocturnal Press, which is a boutique bindery and print shop. Started out as a bindery in 2012, where I was mostly making custom books and blank journals in Baltimore in my basement. I founded IS Projects when I moved back to South Florida in 2014, and we've been here coming up on 7 years in September. So very exciting, very long and fun path to be on. We started the Existent Books project in 2015 with Edwin Beauchamp, and I'm going to show you guys the books relatively quickly here as well. In 2016, I started the small press fair, Fort Lauderdale, which maybe some of y'all have been to. It's a day-long fair celebrating all things print, book, and zine. So anything multiples on paper is totally what we're into. We do print demos, we do a steamroller printing event, we have bookmakers, zinesters, printmakers, people that make apparel and zines together, like lots of different folks there. It's a great place for local creators that are working in these media to meet each other and to, you know, make more opportunities for collaboration, because that's what it's really all about. And then the newest venture is Tropic Bound, which I'm so excited to be able to talk about and give you guys a little teaser. So Tropic Bound is an artist's book fair that will be taking place every other year on even years here in Miami. So it's focusing on handmade artist books and really showcasing a lot of artists from the Caribbean, Latin America, Europe, all over. We're going to be announcing the dates and the venue and opening up applications for exhibitors probably in the next 2 weeks here. With COVID, everything kind of got shuffled, but it is going to be in the first half of 2022. So very excited about that coming up as well. So let's see if I can get these controls here. So I went to MICA in Baltimore. I was I helped with the Globe Collection and Press transition, packing type, and then I was the coordinator for Globe Collection and Press and Dolphin Press and Print my senior year. So we got to collaborate with Trenton Doyle Hancock and hang out in the studio with him while he lost his mind going through drawers of type, which was fantastic. That's him on the top right there. And we also, I continued sort of on the collaborative printing path. I worked with Eva Wiley, assisting with a big installation of hers at MICA. I wound up going to David Kroot projects in South Africa and working on a fine art pop-up book while I was there with Stephen Hobbs. And you can see these are some of the shots from that. I also taught a bookmaking class while I was there. I worked on some production printing, everything that happens sort of in a fine art shop, plus setting up a full screen printing studio for them, which they did not have before I got there. And I was there for 3 months. That's it. So, I like sort of giving myself a challenge and doing these types of things. So this was in 2013, right after graduating from MICA, and I got back and I wanted to sort of get back into my artist practice. I was doing Nocturnal Press this whole time. Again, I started that like right after graduating summer of 2012. And I had a little studio set up in my living room. But I wanted to set up something that could possibly be a community space, but also could, let me get some flat files and some bigger, guillotine, some bigger equipment to be able to do more things. So a friend of mine had this awful basement studio. It was apparently a church in the 80s, had been abandoned for upwards of 15 years. And the landlord of the space was essentially using it as a storage unit. So it was this long, like 20-foot long room with a divider down the middle. So it was like 2 20 by 7-foot wide rooms. It was ridiculous. So we took the wall out. I was very determined to paint the floor. So I painted the floor teal. I literally reused all of the drywall that was on that wall in the middle to do the rest of the drywall and the rest of the space. And the space above us was crumbling. So we had to staple plastic sheeting to the ceiling, which if you've ever tried to staple plastic sheeting to the ceiling, you'll know the staples just rip right through. So what you have to do is put a piece of duct tape and then staple through the duct tape, which is my patented term, duct tapling. So if anyone out there ends up having to staple plastic sheeting to your roof, now you know duct tapling is the way to go. So this studio is awesome. I moved in April 2013, and I spent probably 3 months like really renovating the space and getting everything ready, collecting materials, all of those things. A friend of mine said, Ingrid, you have to stop working on your studio and work in your studio. But as you'll sort of see from the rest of everything that I do, it's a pattern for sure. So I got it set up, and it did, well for me for a while. We decided to move back to South Florida, and I realized that there was really not a lot of printmaking resources here in South Florida for people, and it was also my opportunity to set up more of a community space. I wanted this to be a community space, but it really wasn't, man. It flooded all the time. It had this weird access. It was like you had to go through a wood shop to get to it. It was a whole thing. So it wasn't really the community space that I had dreamed of. So I put a deposit on a Vandercook SP15 from Don Black Line Casting when I was still living in Baltimore. I drove up to go see it during a polar vortex in my Mazda Protege, my 10-year-old Mazda Protege. Every single piece of plastic in the car broke because it had been in Florida for the 10 years of its life prior, and then I took it to Canada in a polar vortex. But I got to see the press. I got to meet Don and Craig and Albert, and I made Craig laugh like a little with a really nerdy type joke. So it felt like a win, and I had to figure out where they were going to ship the press and everything. So we made the decision to move back to Florida, and the press wound up getting shipped to my grandma's house in Boca Raton. And I found this studio here in Fat Village. Our studio is in the Fat Village Arts District. It's Flagler Arts and Technology. There's galleries, there's startups, there's incubators, there's co-working spaces, and all sorts of different things. There's a really nice barbershop, all in this little neighborhood. And I have a landlord who really believes in what we do. and has been really supportive, which has been really key in making this whole thing work. So on July 17th, I signed the lease on this space. On August 31st, I got the keys, and we opened our doors on September 27th, 2014. There's a little Vandercook there. I had this big Kluge that I got from this guy up in West Palm, who it's sort of a thing in Florida. People from Ohio bring their entire collections down because they're going to set up a shop down here and then never do. So there's like all these like Ohio print shops in storage units strewn about throughout South Florida. And that is where actually a lot of our equipment came from. But pretty much when I knew that I was coming down to South Florida, I started collecting as much as I could up in Baltimore, because I knew that we just weren't going to have the same equipment down here, just because South Florida doesn't have the same industrial history that sort of the Rust Belt and more industrial cities do. This was a vacation area until the 80s pretty much, and then it was kind of abandoned, and then now it's like people are actually deciding to live here, but it's still a very transient place. Anywho, so I've moved everything down, my entire studio that was in that basement, in a pod along with my home equipment. So guillotine, I had a board shear, flat files, and when the guy came up to pick up the pod, they have this crane that they lift it with, and the guy picks it up and he's like, "That's a pretty heavy pod, huh?" It's like, yeah, probably, I think it's probably about 15,000, which is like the max for their weight. And when they dropped off the pod in Boynton Beach, Florida, it's obviously a different guy, because it's gone through all of its like shipping and things like that. And he picks it up on the crane and he looks at me and he goes, "That's a pretty heavy pod, huh?" Same words. So, I've moved pretty much everything in the studio here by myself. We have been very lucky to have, extra hands and helpers and people with trailers. And I have a really good relationship with, I say really good relationship, but then I can't remember which one it is. One of the rental truck companies that has the lift gate that does what I need it to do. So we end up moving things that way. So the last Saturday of the month here in this neighborhood, we have Art Walk. So I opened on, that September Art Walk. We had people come through. I put these little mini posters everywhere on Nina Index from Office Depot, because I hadn't ordered any paper or anything yet. I just had some drawers of lead type. I bought all of the Huxley vertical that Don Black had. I was just like, just give me, they're like, we have like 150 pounds. I was like, okay, just pack it all up. I'll take it. And I drove it. I did this wild road trip. I wound up getting more. I have a lot of Huxley vertical. I'm into like Art Deco metal faces. So we have a pretty substantial collection of those, but I won't go too deep into that and nerdy. It's weird to just be monologuing. So, I can.
People want to unmute and laugh along with, because I also love Huxley vertical.
Yes. I have it in 84 point, which is amazing.
Ooh, that is amazing.
That's what's on that poster, but you can't really see it there. But so every couple of years we seem to take on a little bit more space. So this is where we started. I had that big Kluge. I wound up selling it to a guy who was setting up a studio in a barn in Indiantown, which is about an hour and a half north of here, and got a more civilized 10 by 15 CMP instead that was in really good shape. That actually a guy paid to have brought up here because he needed it out of his house so he could sell his house. So that was really nice. George Cuevas, he's a art director in Miami, fantastic. We did his daughter's wedding invites and kept a good relationship. So this is a little bit more what the studio looks like now. This picture on the left here is essentially where I'm sitting in this screen printing room. We have a full etching setup. We have 2 big etching presses. We have a full letterpress studio. We have a foil press. We have bookbinding equipment, screen printing equipment. We have a gallery. We have a retail area where we sell things that we make. And it's out of control. It's like 5,000 square feet right now. I just, I can't, people knock on the front door and it takes you like a while to get up there, which Stephanie, I know, in Hamilton, that's like a hike to get to the front door from anywhere.
Yes, fully understand.
So, we teach workshops, we do studio rental, we have residencies, We do commission printing and binding. We do a lot of wedding invites, business cards, fine art prints, a lot of screen printing, nothing on garments though. So that's the distinction that we make, is like nothing on fabric, except every now and again we do tote bags for friends. So that's not even like a true statement there either. But the studio received a pretty major boost in 2018. Chris Fritton, the itinerant printer, who I'm sure all of y'all are pretty familiar with, he actually came to my studio a couple months after I opened it in 2015. I was actually the very first stop on the itinerant printer tour. It was wild because I had heard about his project, and I set up my studio, and I sent him a really tentative email being like, hey, I just got set up. I don't have a lot of stuff, but if you want to come by, you know, you're going to be at the Jaffe Center in Boca. You're going to be right down the street. So you might, you know, if you have time. And he sends me an email back like, hey, what's your address? I'm going to ship all of my stuff to you because I'm going to start there. I was like, oh, okay. And so I've kept in touch with Chris. You know, we hang out whenever we're in conferences in the same place or any of that stuff. But in 2018, he reached out with the text for the book, just saying like, hey, check this over and make sure it looks okay. And at the time, I had a Vandercook SP15 and a Vandercook number 3 with the hand inking. That was also very cantankerous. It really had a lot of problems going on with it, but it worked just fine. It just needed a lot of love and shim tape. So I got back to Chris and I was like, hey, everything looks great. By the way, if you know of anyone selling an SP20, I really want to be able to do 18 by 24 posters. Chris emailed me back 5 minutes later. So I know of a shop, but I know of a press, but it comes with a full shop, and it's in West Orange, New Jersey, and sent me pictures, and it was just like, you know, like the heavens opened and the light shined down, and there's hundreds of drawers of wood type and an SP20 and Heidelberg windmill red ball and a new cutter, and not a new cutter, but a cutter that was newer, or that was new to me, because my cutter was really on its way out. You know, that hot metal, it starts to dissolve after a while if you're really using it. And so it was just done. So the collar on it was done. So every time you went to clamp it down, the top would just come up, up, up. It was a nightmare. So anywho, so we got in a truck, sorry, back it up a little bit there. So I asked Chris what the story was, and he said that this was the collection of John Selikoff. His shop was called Vote for Letterpress. I'm sure a lot of y'all know of John and Vote for Letterpress as well. John was actually the last stop on the itinerant printer tour, and it was a similar situation where he saw that Chris was in New Jersey and sent him an email being like, hey, you're right down the street. You should come through if you have any time. And then Chris was sort of like, you know, he was trying to wrap it up. He was like, oh my gosh, like, I just want to get to writing the book. And, but you know, it's so close, I'll just go see it. And he was really blown away by John and his collection. And while he was there, John wound up saying, you know, I'm really glad you got to come see it when it's here. I'm not going to have the shop much longer. And Chris said, what do you mean? Like, are you planning to sell? And John said, no, I have ALS and I don't have much time left on this earth. And so Chris went and wrote the book. And by the time he had written the book, John had passed. So when he was trying to get word back from John about if his all the details were correct, he got in touch with Lauren Selikoff, who asked him to help with assessing the collection and finding a new home for it. And that was when that very fortuitous email made it back to me. So sort of like a snake eating its tail, you know, the whole project really came full circle beautifully. Chris wrote really beautifully about this story in the epilogue of the book. So if any of y'all have it, that's me in there. And so I, of course, said yes, you know, and I started this project where we make, what are these called? Pangram posters. with specimens from the collection. It started with this one. Oh, I think I have pictures of them. I'll show you guys. It started with a McCullough, a drawer of McCullough that I was obsessed with, that I had purchased from Leslie of Four Hounds Press up here in West Palm. And John actually had 2 drawers of McCullough as well. So it's sort of, I was able to do it before getting the collection all the way down here, so I could kind of get the project started. And I've been doing that ever since, slowly but surely. We're working on a new one right now. And we packed up, went up to New Jersey. My uncle drove a 16-foot box truck up to New Jersey, and we filled it with everything in the shop that I didn't need anymore, including the Vandercook #3, and took it to Bindery Tools, like their High Bids Wins auction. And we brought the truck to New Jersey, filled it up with everything from John's shop that wasn't really going to work, like a big galley cabinet that wasn't going to work in our space. Like, no, not a lot of stuff from John's shop, but a couple things here and there. My cutter went in there too, the cutter from down here. So drove all the way up to Pennsylvania. We emptied the truck, and then we took it to New Jersey, filled it up with everything, and drove it back to Florida. Because I don't know if you know, but one-way rentals are super expensive, but round-trip rentals are really cheap. So we wound up doing a wild round trip. And it was also a nor'easter. It was Sammy's first time seeing snow. Sammy's in the front of this picture here. So she came up and helped pack up the shop, and we brought it down here. And we've sort of been getting it sorted ever since too. We have a really great batch of interns in the shop this summer. So they did put in some work on getting some of that type repatriated. John was one of those people, he knew where everything was, but anyone else going in there trying to figure it out was gonna have a challenge. So that's been part of the mission for the last 3 years now, is really getting that sorted and used and all of those things. So I've got a couple drawers of it behind me here for the wood appeal, but I'll show you guys that on the tour a little bit more. So these are some of the posters here. The McCullough one on the left is the first one. Bunch of really beautiful type in this collection. It's insane. There's one with a page stamp on it from 1857. It's an incomplete drawer of Gothic. So not the most exciting type in the world, but that stamp, ooh, it's great. So I've been getting them sorted. I've been writing these pangrams. It turns out, like, I found out that John had a thing for pangrams too, which I didn't know until after we started this project. So there's some really like beautiful serendipities that sort of happened there. And the project has been coming along. We've been keeping pretty busy with it and doing what we can. There's Chris when he was there the first time on the left. This is Edwin, who's the first artist of our Existent Books collaborative book publishing project, which is what, you know, has been my passion project. Every year we try to bring an artist or two into the studio to collaborate on a project, on a artist book that we publish. So here's some of the other artists who have been in. This was Michelle on the left. This was last year during our residency. We actually received a grant from the Night Arts Foundation in 2019 to be able to expand the program and make it a little bit more of a packaged residency. So we were able to bring in Michelle A.M. Miller and Onajide Shibaka last summer for 2 weeks, right in the peak of the COVID craziness, which was actually kind of fortuitous because the studio was completely closed down. So it's just me and the artists and an intern every now and again. And we just worked furiously on getting some books editioned and had a really great time and got pretty good documentation, you know. And these are some of the books that we've produced. Edwin's Disarrays in the top left corner there. Beth Sheehan, who some of you might know as well. She's a badass printer, printmaker, bookbinder, literally all of it. That's hers in the top middle. She was, it's pressure printing with handset spire type. I have this drawer of 24-point spire that looks like it's been through a house fire. It's like turns your fingers black because it's covered in soot. But it's so beautiful. Everyone falls in love with it when they come through. I got that from Don and Craig when I was up there. And, you know, so we've been producing these books in an edition of 100 every year. We try to do 1 or 2. With the night support, we're able to do 2, which is fantastic. So those are the artists who are in right now. So the books we're hoping to release during the Editions and Artist Books Fair, if I get in. you know, if not, we'll release them in the fall anyway. So keep an eye on those. I actually have a super sneaky preview for you guys that I'm going to show you that's really fun and letterpressy as well. I also work in book arts. That's like what my personal work mostly is artist books. This is one of mine where when I was in residence at the Jaffe Center for Book Arts in Boca, I spent my whole time there making paper and actually making paper on the beach. So the blue paper there has water from the ocean in the vat instead of, you know, water from the sink. So every now and again you catch a piece of sand or a little bit of seaweed, and then I marbled it and made some abacut to go with it and did some letterpress printing on top, because letterpress printing doesn't care if your paper's handmade as long as it's kind of smooth, right? Or not too bumpy. So pictures from SPF, the small press fair. This is Katie and Sarah, who I founded the fair with. Sarah and I put it together every year. We're all set for this year. It's going to be the second Saturday in November, which I believe is the 13th this year. If anyone's interested, we love having exhibitors from out of town. Like, please check out spfftl.com or our Instagram, spfftl, and, you know, get involved. We'd love to see you guys down there. It's a lot of fun. And Tropic Bound. So that's me, Sarah, and Christina on our next venture. So also please keep an eye out for more information on Tropic Bound. We will have it very soon. We're just signing some contracts and making sure everything's really nailed down before we go getting everybody excited. So actually, it was nice because Nocturnal Press got to print the business cards for Tropic Bound. So we did duplexed, digital marbling, letterpress with blind deboss and edge painting, and, you know, really were able to pull out all the bells and whistles and have a lot of fun with decking out the business cards for that project. And all of the collateral is going to be like that as well. We're really happy to work with Topos, which is a design firm based in sort of Atlanta, New York, used to be Miami. They just did the big rebrand for the Baltimore Museum of Art, actually, which was kind of like a weird fortuitous thing, because we were having meetings with Seth and seeing the BMA logos in the background. We're like, huh, funny little callback to Baltimore. So this is the part where we start to hop into the tour. Does anyone have any questions before I go into that, or should we hop straight in here?
So I haven't seen anybody, but if anybody feels like unmuting and asking any questions, or put them in the chat, you go ahead and do that. Everybody was loving those books, so that it's very exciting. I'm so glad you're going to share more.
Oh, fantastic. All righty. And I am going to put my AirPods in so you guys can hear me. I am going to mute my computer. So it's like a process.
And turn your volume all the way down. That's the thing that gets you.
Okay. And I'm going to unmute. I gotta mute the computer, and I'm gonna turn the video on my phone too. There we go. Hey, how's it going, everybody? See me still?
We can see you, we can hear you. I'm seeing head nods. Looks like we're good.
Excellent. So I'm gonna turn this around because you're probably more interested in the shop than my face. All righty, there you are. Hey, everybody. It's like memento. All righty, so we are here in the screen printing room. I was sitting with this weird little setup so that I could have this nice background for you guys. And this is the, let me make sure my little lens is clean here, sorry. All righty, that looks a little better. So this is the super fun sneaky preview I was gonna show you guys. So this is a letterpress printed and laser cut Volvel by Carol Prusa. And each one of these pieces is silver letterpress on black paper, laser cut, and they're all going to be attached together so that every individual piece will spin. Check this one out. These are just incredible. They're so beautiful. The Ouroboros, which is maybe my favorite. We keep joking about like who's going to get which one tattooed. This is Carol's self-portrait here, so she would get this one. This is a Volvel, so it is sort of a historical paper
craft object that's made to sort of spin, and the different elements that spin point to different things. This one, I'm gonna tell you a secret, nothing points to anything because the name of the book is Unknowing, and it's about sort of accepting the not knowing in the universe. So it's really beautiful. So this is in production. This is an early proof. We haven't trimmed this down all the way, but this is going to be included with Carol's book. So very excited to get onto the production there. There's that drawer of McCullough, this really beautiful deco face that John had in both 4-inch and 5-inch. And yes, I mean 4-inch and 5-inch and not lines, because they don't actually line up to picas. They're inches. And then check this out. I wanted to show you guys. Oh wait, just kidding. That's a different face. Never mind. I'll show you that another time. There's that McCullough poster, Painter's Roman, Aldine, Columbus. And those lino cuts in that one were carved by John. So that was part of the collection that came through. I have some of the other books here. This is Antillean Lacanai, Points of Departure, which was Onajide Shabaka's book from last summer. And I wanted to show you guys, Onajide went wild with hand setting type. So we have all this fun lead type from the collection that is the names of all the rivers that he visited during this project. Super fun. He wanted every single one to be different. So that was really a fun project. And we have the big old Cooper numbers. You'll see those in the other room. So I'll get to the proper studio tour part of these things. There's my computer, bye. So starting from our retail area here, this is where, actually, we're gonna start from the mural. So in 2018, when I took over this side, I commissioned a mural by Derek Hunter, who is an artist based in Miami. We showed his paintings and I could not afford his paintings. So I commissioned a mural and my landlord helped to cover some of it. So we have this really, really beautiful mural on the front of the building here that I have to show off whenever we do a studio tour. So we have these 3 doors. This is the gallery door, upstairs door, retail door. So we're gonna come in here, say hi, Sammy. This is Sammy, who's our education and gallery manager. She's working hard on an exhibition of the Existent Books, along with the work by the artists, like from their typical practice, that's actually going up at the Coral Springs Museum of Art. It opens on July 6th. So super excited for that one. This is our little retail area here. So we have, you know, prints and books and coasters and all the different things that we make here in the studio. Desk spaces. This is my desk. You can tell because it's covered in stuff I have to deal with. And the screen printing room here. So we have a big AWT press and all of our screen printing inks, a big old film printer, a kitchen for snacking, a dark room for burning screens. It's our exposure unit and all of our screens. Lots of flat files. We've been blessed with lots of architecture studios trying to get rid of flat files. And then this is the letterpress room. So we have sign press, a teal Craftsman Superior, which I thought must have been custom painted when I bought it, but there's actually a letterpress printer in Denver who has its identical twin. So I guess it must have actually been an option. Some Globe posters, shout out to Globe up at the top. These are projects that I worked on while I was there. This is my collection of type over here. This is John's collection of type over here. So it's a pretty significant upgrade. We've been doing some sorting on some of these like odd things. These are those Cooper Black numbers that I was mentioning. We got a bunch of little 3D presses donated. So they've been hanging out, keeping an eye on the shop. Shout out to Cannonball and to Stripe Light Press and to Chris Britton over there. We did this really fun wrestling inspired poster for a rap concert by Red Bull down in Miami. That was right before everything shut down for the pandemic. And so that was all hand set, which we actually still have the blue layer of the form hanging out over here. And so these drawers are all full of delicious, delicious wood type. Some Bradley, some Tuscan Extended.
I love the Tuscan Extended. That's beautiful.
She's fine. I've been 2 different sizes too. We got 4 and 6 line.
Oh, that's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, they're pretty complete too, and they print really well. Some of the type in the collection is covered with this kind of black soot that prints pretty bad. So printing yellow can be a challenge, but for the most part, everything prints okay. So we have, oh man, and this is this wild one here. Every now and again, I have to send out an SOS, like, what is this? This really crazy Bigfoot A over here. And of course, some cute little Kit Kat. Everything, of course, needs scrubbing and printing, which is part of why the specimen poster project has been so valuable. So we've been sort of building or cleaning everything as we use it. And lots of good stuff. So, you know, this is all wood type. These 2 in the back are lead. There's more wood over there. It's a kind of overwhelming and amazing collection. There's George, who I mentioned earlier. This is Sam and CB and Amber printing over there. Actually scoring. Right now, we're scoring some folding wedding invitations that are really beautiful. So this is the press that came from John Selikoff. I try to name all of my presses after the people that I get them from as like a way of preserving just a teeny tiny bit of their long histories. So Sam is named after John Selikoff's son, and I went ahead and named the windmill after John himself. So this is John, AKA the Beast. And so we have more type over here. The 2 wood cabinets are both full of Selikoff type. The middle cabinet is mine. And you know, all of my good specimen books, might recognize some of those. And then here we have the foil room where Carol Prusa is furiously marbling paper for the edition. And this is Abby, who is an intern this summer. Say hi, Carol. She's in the zone. Our Kensal K50. These are some of the paper that Carol's marbling. So very beautiful, awesome. Can't wait to use it as end pages in the book. I could also just stand here and like watch Carol marble literally all day. So here we go. Gonna get a dip. Just like that. Making art. Yes, these are, we're using a 184-pound paper for the entire book. It's beautiful Strathmore 400 series. There she goes, looking good. And I'm gonna sneak back. So we actually have access to a courtyard out here. This is all where we keep most of our paper stock. The little cutter that I started with, the big cutter that I brought down from John, which I think is like 1890s or so. Very difficult to find blades for this cutter. I have to keep getting sort of scrap blades and then drilling new holes in them, which is a whole thing. And then this is our etching room, or we call it the far room, fine art room. It's also very far away from the door. And so we've got Mary, who is a custom built 43 by 80 etching press. Myron, who also came down from John Black line casting, who apparently was in some movies in Canada, but Don couldn't remember which ones. So I haven't been able to fact check, but I like to tell everybody that Myron here is a movie star. And then this is where it all started. This is the board shear. This storefront here was put in for me when I signed the lease on the space. So we used to only have this fine art room and the book room, or sorry, the foil room. This used to be the book room. Books moved upstairs. And then we knocked out this wall here and took over this space. And then the landlord put a hole in the wall for us here, and we took over this space. And I'm going to show you guys the gallery before we go upstairs. I promise we're more than halfway through. There will be time for questions.
No, this is great. Thank you.
Of course. So this is our gallery space up here. This is Just You and Me by Mark Floridor. He's a Haitian American Miami-based artist who also went to MICA. Didn't find that out until the show started. And these are all screen monotypes. We do not exclusively show prints, but we know a lot of printmakers and people that are in the print world, so we do tend to have maybe a little bit of a print bias. So I'm going to go back out the gallery door, and we're going to go upstairs. See if this is open. It is not. Good thing I brought the keys. Alrighty, so Whippy Wild yellow hallway. This is from the previous tenant. They had everything painted like primary yellow, primary blue, and primary red. So this is the only remnant of it. But I mean, you kind of can't resist this like wacky yellow hallway vibes. So upstairs, we now have, this is Elia Kalaf, who is a resident artist on the Existent Books project. So we're doing color testing, screen printing, conceptualization, drawing inspiration from pineapples. Yep, exactly. Very tropical, good vibes, lots of samples on the wall there. This is our book nook, little artist books and books about art and all the good things, and a place to just kind of lounge and hang out. We have individual artist studios. So this is the studio of Christina Muller, I think is in there. William D. Ampere, Lane Miller. And then around the other side is where we've moved all of our book equipment to. This is all of, this is Carol's setup. So she's downstairs marbling right now, but this is where she's been in residence for the last 2 weeks. Jeff Wade has a studio in there. It's actually a really beautiful one. Bookbinding equipment, paper making equipment. What's this thing called? Perfect binder, backing press, book presses. This was my first book press. I got it when I was in Baltimore. My friend who was working at the Baltimore and Ohio Train Museum painted it for me. So she's chessy blue. Leather, book cloth, all of those good things. This is Kato, who is our sales and fulfillment associate, fighting with the digital printer on some address printing, which is the nightmare among nightmares. It's what keeps you up at night. Etching setup, paper making setup. So we have a press and drawing system there. And then of course, the nicest part, a rooftop, rooftop balcony, where you can see all of Fat Village. Everything the light touches is Fat Village. So.
Love it. When we visit, I will definitely make sure to check out the rooftop.
Yes, we're working on getting some more furniture for up here. It's a little bit barren, but we had a big paper making project. So we had paper making equipment out here. We're just making paper all day long everywhere. So yeah, it's been quite an adventure, quite a journey, lots of growth, lots of challenges. Yeah, I think I'll probably stay up here versus running back downstairs, is there any issues with the audio up here?
I can hear a little bit of wind. It's nothing crazy, so I can let you know if that gets nuts.
Yeah, I'm like, is there a less windy spot? Oh yeah, right here. Can't reach me. All right.
There are a couple of good questions. First of all, also, I just want to say everybody loved the space. I think we were all a little stunned at how it just kept going.
Oh my gosh, it's bananas. I told you it's bananas.
Yes, it is bananas. We have some delightfully nerdy questions, which I always love, is because I'm intrigued to see what people are looking at. And Hans wants to know what manufacturer or model is your film printer, and have you ever used it to make polymer plates?
Oh, my film printer is an Epson 9800. I got it from a screen printer friend of mine. Has seen lots of better days and does not really love continuing to operate, but somehow it does. But it doesn't print I don't think it prints opaque enough for photopolymer, so I probably wouldn't take that gamble. I also don't have plate making facilities here. I have no interest in making plates. I did that when I was in college, and it's like the most expensive mistakes you can make. So skip that, and I get all my plates from Concord Engraving.
Oh, great. That's always a good thing to know. And then Teresa wants to know, how do you determine where to drill new holes on your cutter blades? They have to do the same thing, so they're curious about it.
I work with a machinist, so I just took the old blade in. John had a blade on it already, so I took that blade to the machinist when they drilled the new holes in the new blade. I had been trying to get my blade people to get me a new blade for like a year and a half. And finally they just gave me one that they had in the back that I guess like someone never claimed, so it's like all rusty and creepy. But it was the right length, and the holes didn't interfere. The holes that were already in it didn't interfere with the holes that I needed to drill. So they gave it to me for free, and I just took it and spent $200 getting 2 sets of holes drilled in it. But it works great, and I'm happy to have another blade for it. But every time the blade starts getting short on that cutter, I start thinking about whether or not to get like a Polar or something bigger.
Yeah, those are tough decisions as they start to like pop up.
Yeah, I'm waiting because I would have to put in 3-phase for that, and they're working on redeveloping this entire block. So once I have the new studio, I'll probably invest in a bigger cutter, but I don't want to have to move it twice.
Yes. When we moved in, we were lucky, but there was 3-phase everywhere. There are 2 questions
Amazing.
specifically about, one was, can you talk a little bit about the difference between IS projects and Nocturnal Press? Like, how does that
Yes,
happen?
excellent question. We get that a lot. We have 2 different websites, 2 different Instagrams. So Nocturnal Press is everything commissioned. So anything that people send us files to print or pay us to print for them is or bind for them is Nocturnal Press. So letterpress, screen printing, some digital printing, mainly just envelopes, book binding, all of those things fall under the Nocturnal Press category. And then IS Projects is the collaborative fine art printmaking studio. So workshops, gallery, dealings, and programming. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Gallery programming, workshops, studio rental, residency, all of that is under the IS Project side of things. So it's, if you imagine it's a public access studio that has a for-profit print shop within it that operates within it. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and that actually is a good question that Hans wanted to know if you'd share more about your funding.
Yeah, I mean, our funding all comes from commission projects, essentially. We were doing pretty good with workshops for a while, but the pandemic took that away pretty thoroughly. We're working on getting those open back up again. We just opened up private classes. We haven't really set a schedule for scheduled in-person classes again, but we're working on sort of figuring out how to re-enter that world of things. But we do a lot of commission printing, and so that is really the main bread and butter that helps to fund the rest of all the projects that we do. We got a pretty generous grant to keep Existent Books going. We also are, I am also hustling books every chance I get. They're in a lot of special collections across the country, and luckily it helps that project to help fund itself a little bit better. So we're not relying exclusively on Nocturnal Press's funding. But yeah, I mean, it's a struggle every month. It's not like, it's definitely not like all of this is easy by any stretch, but we've been very fortunate to be able to keep going. I mean, even through the pandemic, we still had orders coming through. We do didactic materials for museum exhibitions every now and again, and that's always like a really fun thing. So like renting out the book arts equipment and stuff like that and putting it in the museum and setting up like a full display of like how that works and everything like that. That was like some really fun projects that we've done the past couple of years that have really helped with the finances and things like that. So yeah, so many different balls in the air for sure.
And please, if anybody has questions, you can unmute, you can put them into the chat. One of the things I saw somebody was interested in was how do you find your artists for the Existent Books, and how do those relationships get started or built?
Yeah, Existent Books started as a passion project for me. Like I set up the studio and it was kind of like very commission based because I was just trying to pay the rent and like make everything work. And we introduced workshops and that was helping too. And then Edwin actually reached out. I had met him at the Miami Zine Fair and he was like, we should collaborate sometime. We should collaborate sometime. And he sort of like was persistent about it. And I was like, you know what, we should collaborate sometime. And so that's where I sort of came up with the idea of doing like a semi-annual or annual bookbinding project or artist book publishing project. Sorry. And it started out where I wanted it to be sort of every other artist would be visiting and local. And once we got into it, we realized there's so many local artists that we really wanted to work with. And we really wanted to build the community here and break down barriers to access here in South Florida and get people interested in it and thinking about it, because there's so many incredible resources for book artists down here. And working collaboratively is what I really enjoy. So it started out pretty much as invitational, and then with the additional grant funding from the Night Arts Foundation, we actually did our first open call, which we selected Onajide Shabaka last year in 2020 and Elia this year in 2021. So it's sort of half invitational, half open call this last year. I think next year it'll probably be all open call. But yeah, I mean, it was a passion project. So I kept it very sort of close to the chest and kept a lot of control over it. And with the additional night funding, we were able to really open it up more and do a lot more for the artists, and also like really push the boundaries of how far that project could go.
And to that point, Hans is curious if you do all the grant applications.
Yes, Sammy and I are the grant queens of IS projects. So we're lucky we don't have to do like a crazy amount of grants. Like none of our employees are grant funded or anything like that. But yeah, we are constantly applying for grants. Some are easier than others. The county ones, of course, are like more difficult than the state ones, and then the private ones tend to be the easiest ones, but they're also the hardest to get. So yeah.
Well, congratulations on that Knight Foundation one. That's huge. I mean, that really is amazing.
I got 2 that year, Tropic Bound and Existent Books. So after applying for, I think, 5 years, I had been applying for 5 years with like, no, just no. And then we got 2 in 1 year. So that was really incredible and really just so much support. And I don't know, it helps really feel like you're a little bit more validated in what you're doing too. I mean, then again, I would never stop doing book arts, like projects like Existent Books, even if I didn't feel like validated by external forces, because like that's just what I love to do. I mean, I went to South Africa and did a collaborative fine art pop-up book in 3 months. So I try to find a way to make it work no matter what.
Yes. And but I think you're right. You're doing amazing things, and it just helps you share it with that much wider of an audience. So thank goodness for those funders. Yeah. We've got one more question from Hans, and then we might wrap it up. What's been your period of growth in your current facility?
What is that?
Well, I think you started, and then how did that grow? You kind of showed us where like wall.
Yeah.
Oh, length of time too.
Oh, yes. So we took so September 27th, 2014, we opened the 2 rooms that were the fine art room and the room where Carol was marbling. Is 860 square feet. We took on the Letterpress Room in the gallery in 2016, so about a year and a half there. And then we took on the screen printing side in January 2019. Yes, 19, not 18. And then I took on, no, maybe it was 18. Oh, sorry, I'm like a little, I can never remember that one because it's just, you know, once you've got that much space, you're sort of like keeping track of everything is wild. And then the tenant upstairs left and the space was empty for a while. And Lane Miller, who's one of the artists who rents the studio space up there, reached out and was like, hey, if you know of any studio spaces available, my building's about to get torn down. And I said, well, I might know of one. So because of the pandemic, I was able to get a really good deal on the upstairs space because it's not handicap accessible, which is a struggle. But luckily we have other things that we can be working on up here that, you know, so we can continue our workshops downstairs, and it just gave us more space to sort of spread out and do it. But I played it really coy too. Like I didn't call my landlord back a bunch of times, like trying to seem like a little bit disinterested so I could try to get a little bit better of a deal. And so, you know, we already had one studio renter, and then I had a friend build walls for the other studios. So we were able to set up 3 individual rental spaces. And so we rented out those spaces, and, you know, that helps to sort of keep all of that going too, which like, I never thought I'd be a landlord. That was like a really weird thing to wrap my head around, but it's been really nice because I was really selective with the artists who went in. So it's like a lot of people that I already knew and people that, you know, are working in sort of tangential fields. So it just makes a lot of sense there. So yeah, so June 2020 is when I got the keys for the upstairs space. So we've just sort of been gradually setting it up. It's still pretty crazy. I don't know if it comes across that way in the Zoom video, but we're still sort of getting all that situated and sorted out. But I'm hoping that it can be a good space for, you know, residencies and being able to sort of spread out and really get your head around a project by laying it out on big tables and seeing it in that context.
I think it's absolutely amazing. Hans called you a go-getter, and I think that's a wonderful way to say it. I mean, from the beginning of you starting all of your projects, it's really amazing to see what you've built. So thank you for doing that and being part of the community.
Thank you.